All right, and we are live here on the Brunch Network YouTube channel. It is The Spread here on February 22nd. As you can see, we are both in studio for the first time in a long, long time.
First time in a while. A lot of stuff's been going on that has prevented us from doing the Saturday morning shows. And it's been a weird year with college in terms of just what we've learned, especially coming Saturday mornings, Joe. I feel like a lot of our work done, especially for Saturday mornings, comes the night before. And so I think that, maybe has played into the fact of the lack of spread shows, but we're back, we're together. We may not have as many picks we've had in the past. Usually we'll go over 20 for these Saturday games, but right now I'm guessing we're probably not going to discuss much more than a dozen or so. I think that should be just enough to whet your appetite because they will be locks.
All right, so I have, since we're using my computer, the stream here, I'm going to go off my phone for my picks. I have a 2 here. You have anything before 2 for you?
Let me do that. Actually, I'm going to start at 2 as well, and I'm going to discuss, I'd like to discuss a couple games, too, that I've not bet yet, but I want to see if they're available. And actually, one of them is at 1 o'clock, so let's start there. And let's go with our old pals. Joe's wearing the North Texas shirt today. I need to get myself a nice long sleeve shirt of a team that's been very
big game. Pod play starts today.
Yeah, pod play. Watch out, CUSA. But I need to pick a shirt for a team that is very near and dear to my heart, and that team this year may be the UNC Greensboro Spartans. Everyone's talking about East Tennessee State. Everyone's talking about VMI. The Spartans are the team that's been so consistent all year, game in and game out. They play at 1. The line is currently 9.5. They are at VMI. It's a large spread for a road game. So I'd like to get this to 9. That's what I'm looking for. But right now, my ratings say this game should be probably more of a 11.5 point favorite for Greensboro. Again, they've just been really good this year. They've been incredible defensively. They've dominated the turnover battle against everyone. And I just think there's really no area here that VMI's unless VMI gets hot from 3, which again is part of the reason why I want to wait a little more, because it's a little scary to lay that many points on the road with the team. And VMI has been not bad recently, but they just won at Western Carolina. But ultimately, Greensboro just seems like the much better team. VMI is still really bad, even though they've been better than expected this year. So if you can get 9 with this one, I'm not sure if it'll get there. But
where's it at now?
It's at 9.5.
9.5.
So laying 9.5, just a little too much for me. I'd like to get a little bit. Again, it's at 1, so we'll see if it gets there. But 9 is what I'm looking at.
All right, let me.
You want to?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna go into the next one at 2 p.m. Just the one that is also not quite
the one that we picked for our pool.
The one we picked for the pool. And
so for those of you who don't know, we needed to pick 5 games for our pool today. The lines go off of last night, so we only had 4 really good bets that we had last night. Some of the lines moved, so we had to pick one that we did not bet, but we have to pick it for our pool. We're in the semifinals. We might bet it.
I'd like to see it get a little lower, and that game.
Chris, give me a minute here.
I'm
Keep going.
About this one. Don't worry, Joe's got a quick break here, but I'm talking about the Northeastern Huskies, and why would I want to bet this team? They've been really bad this year in CUSA. I mean, they're at 500. They've lost 6 of 8. They just got stomped at Delaware, and they really just need to bounce back in this game. I think it's a good spot. They're at Drexel. They're only laying 2.5 points. I would like to get to 1.5 in order to bet this game, but I really like this game for a few reasons. First of all, one of the reasons why Northeastern has really struggled at times in CAA play has been their lack of a good 2-point defense. We've talked about this on the brunch. They're very bad at it. That being said, they're the best defensive team. Hey, Grace.
What's going on, guys?
They're the best defensive team in the entire conference. That's just their one weakness. So I think that, if they can get the good matchup, I mean, they've lost Delaware twice already. They lost to William & Mary twice already. This is the kind of team they struggle against, the team that can beat them up down low. Drexel is not that team. Drexel is really just has not been very good offensively. They've kind of gotten by on hitting some threes and getting some offensive rebounds, something that Northeastern should stop them from doing. I mean, Northeastern is the 13th best team in the entire nation in offensive rebounding rate and the best one in CAA play. And also a big thing that Drexel has struggled with, and I may be a little high on Drexel in my ratings right now, which is why I'm waiting a little longer, but Drexel is really bad at taking care of the ball, and that's another thing Northeastern is really good at. So I just think that the matchup here defensively for Northeastern is really going to help them. We've seen this team under Bill Cohen come on late in the season a lot. They're just very well coached. It's been a down year, no doubt. They've been really disappointing. But this is a game they should not lose, and they really, I think, will want to win this game. And if you can get it at a 1.5, that's a no-brainer. We might consider it a 2.5. We'll see. But either way, it's a short spread. So, and Joe, honestly, I was thinking we're going to Philly today. If things go wrong, we could just go over to Drexel Stadium and just mess stuff up. Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it that way, it's a lot.
Chris, you ready for this feature that we're gonna break out here? Ready? All right, look at that. Where should I put it? Down here?
Yeah, put it down low.
All right, there we go.
So
Perfect.
With the white,
how do you like that? All right, we'll get rid of that for now.
Northeastern, I would try to hold out for 1.5, but if you're really itching like we may be, we would take 2.5.
All right, let's go out to Michigan. I'm going to Western Michigan, and this game actually it's confusing me a bit here because I don't understand why they're getting 3.5 points in this game. Toledo has been awful this year, 4-9 in the conference, and it doesn't really make much sense to me because Western Michigan, we've been on them a few times. They generally tend to play tight games. They've had some late game meltdowns, things like that, but that was against more of the top teams in the conference. Toledo has underwhelmed this year, and I think that Toledo's a little bit better than what they've shown. Obviously, I still have them as about an average team in college basketball, but they should not be laying 3.5 points at Western Michigan today. Western Michigan, as long as they're able to knock down some of their jump shots, they should be able to come through and win this game, or at least keep it within the 3.5 point line. I really do think they're probably going to win, but I make the line Toledo -1. We're getting 3.5 here, so I'll take the points. Western Michigan. Hold on a second. Now I can't do it.
Well, Joe, if it makes you feel any better about this game, just another thing.
What the hell, Chris? It worked the first. There we go. Western Michigan +3.5.
If it makes you feel any better, I don't know if you realize Toledo is the second worst team in the entire country against spread.
I was thinking. I wanted to look that up.
We have just dodged bullets left and right not betting because they've been so bad, and I've had to just drop them like a point per week in my ratings. But yeah, Toledo's they're covering 25% of the time. They're 6-18.
You read my mind there because I was thinking this early this morning.
I had heard I think or read somewhere that Toledo was really bad at.
And they've been favorites a lot this year, which
right,
is
and that just shows. I mean, it just shows that the bookmakers have been wrong on them, and we'll see if they're hopefully still wrong on them today.
All right, the bet of the day is also at 2:00. Unfortunately, at this point, you're not getting it at the number that we got it at, but there is still some value, I think, at the current line. South Alabama is going to Coastal Carolina, and Coastal Carolina has had some opportunities the last 5 or 6 games or so to kind of exert their dominance against some lower teams in the Sun Belt. They just destroyed Troy by 30 a couple days ago, and I think that's propping them up a bit. Coastal Carolina lost Brima Dibba at the beginning of the season in non-conference play, their point guard, and I bumped them down. And then their knockdown shooter Keyshawn Bruton got he entered the transfer portal midway through conference season, and I knocked them down more for that. I've generally, whenever they played top teams in the Sun Belt, I've generally been looking to fade them. We've made some money against them this year, and South Alabama is a team that came into the Sun Belt, came into the 2020 season as one of the favorites to win the Sun Belt. They have underperformed at the beginning of the season, but they are getting their stuff together at this point. They just went to Appalachian State and beat them. They've been really good in the last 5. I think they've won 4 in a row or 5 in a row. Again, I don't have my computer in front of me right now, so I'm going off the top of my head here. But trust me, the research was done last night. There you go. They've won 5 in a row.
3 on the road.
And yeah, so they generally, the home road doesn't matter with them. They have some really good matchup advantages here too. Pretty much, I mean, they play a zone, and the only way to beat them is to shoot over their zone. They give up a lot of 3-point shots, but Coastal Carolina, especially since Bruton's gone, has shot awful from 3. Chris, you want to give me a percentage in conference?
27.2% in conference, the worst in the Sun Belt.
So this is my favorite bet of the day, South Alabama. There you go. Pick them at this point. If you're following the Spread Twitter account, you would have got 1.5 last night.
You might be able to get +1 somewhere.
Maybe.
And you could even just, I don't know, if you would just take the money line there at that point.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to 3 o'clock, and we're going to go to the Horizon League. This is one of my bets that I don't have many today. This is one of 2 that I am all in on right now, and that is the Wright State Raiders. Our pal Scott Nagy. We've kind of had an up and down year betting him this year because Wright State's generally laying a lot of points, and we had the weird Detroit game and just some stuff going on otherwise. But this team is fully healthy. They've been fully healthy all year, and they've kind of dominated the Horizon League. One game they did not dominate is their last game at Youngstown State. They got bullied by the Penguins. Now, I think that was a really that was a big game for the Penguins. I know that the motivation was high. They were trying to really lock up that Horizon League tournament spot because not every team in the conference tournament will get in. And I think that while they didn't need that game specifically, I think they treated it very, very highly. And I think, that's maybe the reason why Wright State's motivation did not match up. Fast forward to Saturday, Wright State is going to Cleveland State. We faded Cleveland State the other day, Joe. And the reason why we did that is because even though the Vikings...
Won. What? I just wanted to throw
we did.
We won.
Sorry, we did win. That one was pretty easily. But Cleveland State's really bad. Now, I don't want to trash them too much because Dennis Gates has done a good job this year because they were supposed to be horrific. They were supposed to be really one of the worst teams in college basketball. They started off the year 5-5 in conference play in the Horizon. Not something to write home about. Since then, they have lost 4 or 5. They've lost some close games. They only win was a overtime win against Detroit, which is not much to write home about. But the reason why we're fading Cleveland State here is because they are missing their 2 junior guards, Craig Bodian and Franklin Penn. Now, Bodian has been awesome for them this year. He was not expected to be this good, but Bodian has kind of ran this team for most of the year, and they kind of survived without him for a little bit. They were able to hang at Illinois, Bodian played that game. They were able to hang at Oakland, and they won the Detroit game. But I think against the top of the Horizon, like you saw with Northern Kentucky, they're going to struggle. And I think that happens again this game. I think Wright State blows them out on the road. I think Wright State is motivated here. I think that this Wright State offense is not going to have any trouble doing anything. And the Cleveland State offense, which is really bad, is going to take a big hit without these guards. So I'm going to take Wright State and lay that 9 on the road.
All right. We're laying the 9, Wright State. That is our third official bet of the day. We also had a couple other ones that were fringe bets. Keep in mind the spreads, folks. We're not blindly betting any of these games. So
yes, don't just
mind your spreads.
The reason why we're giving some of these is because for example, the Greensboro one before. Do not bet it at 9.5. I do not want it at 9.5. So that's kind of what we're doing here with these spreads and what we always do because we post a line that we think is good. And I think most people do that, and a lot of times people just take them blindly, and generally that comes back to bite you.
Mind your spreads. We're going out to a team that we have bet plenty of times this season. Would you agree with that?
Oh yes, they are definitely on our favorite list. We should compile the stats at some point in the season.
Yeah, of how many times we bet each. Yeah, and how they did for us.
Yeah, it's true. True.
We got a team that's coming up later in the show as we tease forward here. That has not lost a bet for us all season long, I believe.
And we bet them.
So that's coming up in just a little bit. But let's go to Missouri State first. Huge game in the Missouri Valley. If Loyola Chicago wins this game today, they will actually be in first place in the Missouri Valley as Northern Iowa has lost their last 2 games.
Is Northern Iowa done with the at-large bid, or do they still have a chance?
I'm seeing in a lot of bracketologies that they're still in on the 11 line.
I guess if you're
the losses weren't terrible.
The Indiana State one is tough.
It still might be Q2 though. It's on the edge.
I would say I mean going to Loyola in overtime, I understand. It's just a shame because they both very close games. And
yeah, I believe I warned everyone that Northern Iowa wasn't as good as everyone thought. But they'll probably get things together. I still hope that they get the at-large. But Loyola Chicago now goes to Missouri State. Missouri State was, just like South Alabama, preseason favorite to win the conference, and another one of those teams that is starting to get things together again. They've played really well in the last few games. We bet them in a game where they were home against Indiana State. Pick them, and they lost. And in that game, they, in the second half, decided to put this guy, Ross Owens, in the game. And since that second half, because they played really well in the second half in that game, they lost, but they played really well in the second half. Since that game, they've played really well with him in the lineup. And I don't really understand why. He kind of just brought a little energy to them on the defensive end.
He doesn't score much.
He doesn't do much.
He's been good distributing the ball. I mean, he had 8 assists against Indiana State in the rematch. He had 4. Both against Drake and Southern Illinois, so he's clearly making a positive impact.
Just not on the score, not on the stat sheet, really, on the scoring sheet.
But you can see he's getting the minutes where the whole season he was just getting a lot
Didn't
of
do anything. So I don't know. He's just been kind of a glue guy for them. But Tulio De Silva missed the game against Bradley the other day. They still brought Bradley to overtime at Bradley, almost beat him there. So this Missouri State team, I think, has it back together like they were supposed to be at the beginning of the season. I've rose their power rating back to where I had them at the beginning of the year because I think that they are there. I think that they're basically at this point maybe Loyola has them by a half a point or something, but you got the home court advantage here. Huge game. I really do think Missouri State's going to bring it today. Loyola has struggled offensively at times too. Their free throw percentage is awful. I don't really understand. They shoot pretty well from 3, but when they get to the line, they can't make them.
66% from free throw, 62.6 in conference.
It's strange.
That is strange.
I think that at Missouri State they're going to struggle today. So we're going to take the Bears.
I like this pick because I like how not only did you not waver on the Bears, but also that you were able to find this little nugget about Ross Owens that most of the time, not only do people not find for betting college basketball, it's just impossible to find these sometimes. Yeah. It's possible to find these kinds of updates or tidbits about these mid-major conferences.
You got to watch the games. That's big. I was watching that game.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very important to watch the games too, or even go back and maybe sometimes we do look at the minutes discrepancies. Wait a minute, this guy played 8 minutes. He might have gotten hurt or something. But like you said, Missouri State has won 3 of 5 since that Indiana State debacle. The 3 wins were by double digits. The 2 losses were on the road, 1 in overtime, 1 by 2, where they probably
should have won that.
They probably should have beaten Southern Illinois. So I like to pick there. Let's go to my next game, which is at 4:30. That is going to be the Mercer Bears, a team that we have not bet a ton this year. I've been a little spooked, and that's because they lost their point guard, Ross Cummings, earlier on in the year. Now, Cummings, once he went out, they struggled quite a bit. They were having trouble. But they've since been able to kind of, turn it around. They've gotten this team together. I'm going to butcher his name, but
what do we got here?
Djordje Dimitrovic.
Close enough.
Dimitrovic, something like that. He's been awesome this year. He's the senior guard. He's been really good for them, and he's kind of shouldered the load for the Bears. And I think Greg Gary has done a pretty decent job in his first year filling in for Bob Hoffman.
R.I.P.
Yeah, Bob Hoffman, great guy, former Brunch coach. They've won 8 of 11. They just beat, and this is Samford, so we don't want to take too much. They just beat Samford by 40. But they've played some good games. I mean, they won at East Tennessee State. They won at Wofford. They've been competitive in these games too, and I like them.
They had that game against Furman. I remember betting them way early in conference.
Yeah, I remember that, and they that was probably the last time we bet them. That was the end of our 22-game win streak.
Yeah, last game I think.
But Mercer's been really good this year, and I think they should be able to. They're going to Chattanooga, and Chattanooga is really, if anything, slightly better than them. Chattanooga's been really nice this year, but they've also kind of. I think they're kind of outkicking their coverage a little bit. They were not supposed to be this good, and they've just kind of rolled on. But I mean, some of those. I mean, you look at these wins, like of all the games that they've won since the last time they played Mercer, which they actually beat Mercer at Mercer January 4th. Their only wins that are non-Samford Citadel VMI wins, which don't really count. are a sweep of Wofford, and a Wofford team that's really struggled this year. But I think another thing that I like about this matchup too is the fact that it looks like Chattanooga is going to be missing their power forward Rod Johnson, and just having a guy, especially a team that's very good at defensive rebounding, to be missing Johnson. I still think that even if Johnson plays, and I don't have an exact injury update for if he's going to play or not, but even if he does play, I still like the game. But I like the Mercer Bears here. I just think it's too many points, so we're going to take them +6. It's 5.5 right now. I would still take it at 5.5. I guess the lowest I would go is I'd probably do 5.
All right, hold on. Let me update this here.
But we'll put 5.5 right now because I think the line right now is 5.5. We got 6, but Mercer plus 5.5 I think is a perfectly good pick in a game that I think Chattanooga is getting a little overvalued here.
All right, Mercer plus 5.5. Let's go to 5 o'clock. We're moving right along here. We got a little more Sunbelt action. We're going to Little Rock at Arkansas State, a game that happened just 2 weeks ago, and we bet the over in that game. I believe it was 140 at the time. It is now 143, rightfully so, because that game got to 177. So those two teams, they're going to run. They're going to shoot a ton of free throws, as Arkansas State does. And I just feel like, when you're getting to the line that many times, and when there's going to be a lot of offensive rebounds in that game, I just feel like there's going to be points on every possession. So even in a game, you get to 70 possessions, as long as they're scoring over a point per possession, the game's going to easily go over 143. So the total is 143, and it's we're keeping it pretty simple here. I think there's going to be 70-plus possessions. I think there's going to easily be a point per. I think they'll get to 143 pretty easily. So Little Rock, Arkansas State, over 143. Do I keep going here, Chris?
Yeah, you're actually the only thing I have left is one game that I am considering, but it is a 10 p.m. game. So you've got free reign to
Mountain West.
The old Mountain West. You got free reign to wipe the slate here.
All right, let's wipe it clean here. I'm gonna still give this play out, even though it's not really where it was when we bet it. Brown -3. If anyone watches Ivy League basketball, obviously they play back-to-backs Friday, Saturday. Last night, Cornell played probably the most shocking game out of any Ivy League game this season. They were home and they brought Yale to overtime without Jimmy Boeheim. If those of you who follow Syracuse basketball, yes, it is Jim Boeheim's son. He plays for Cornell. He's their
Buddy's brother.
Buddy's brother, and he's their best player. He was out last night. Yale, the team that some have said are in contention for an at-large, they've been one of the best mid-major teams in the country this year. They struggled to beat Cornell. Single overtime, lost by 1 at the buzzer. Cornell did. I just feel like that is like your home run spot for Cornell, and like the fact that they lost that game literally last night. Went to overtime. They're going to be gassed from that game. They still are not going to have their best player in Boeheim. I just feel like today is a humongous letdown spot here for Cornell.
It's interesting. Sorry to cut you off. It's interesting because generally you don't get the back-to-back spots in college basketball to kind of give you a little edge there.
Yeah.
And this is what happens in the Ivy.
Yeah, and I've been trying to kind of navigate that because you do have to still factor in like Brown also played last night, and
and you don't want to just totally like. I think it's a very like it's kind of a naive take if you're like, okay, like, well, this team just got blown out last night, they're going to come back, and it doesn't always work out like that.
It doesn't, and you also have to consider the fact that Brown is traveling, but I think these Ivy League teams are used to traveling. The edges in for home court advantage in the Ivy League are some of the lowest in college basketball, which that actually surprised me because you would think that if you're playing back-to-backs, the home court would be more advantageous because you don't have to drive overnight and get to your next destination. But it just doesn't work that way. Ken Pom has, I think, all the home court advantages around 2.
Well, the travel is definitely not massive for the Ivy.
It's not. I mean, they're all pretty,
That's what we've learned about the Horizon League. Like some of these, the schools are very close to each other, so that's part of the reason why the home court is not as big as you would think it is. I mean, if you're going from, Penn to Princeton, it's not terrible. That's basically what we're doing today, kind of.
Right.
So
it's actually our travel today is longer than that.
There you go. we gotta perform well on the road today.
But yeah, we're gonna go with Brown. I'll give it out -3. I just think that it's a home run spot for them, and they've been much improved this year. I think they're gonna win this game. Cornell, big letdown spot for them today. All right. I have 2 more, and the first one here was the one that we teased earlier in the show. This is our team that has made us the most money this year. It hasn't even really been that close.
No, it's. I mean, where would we be without the Bonnies right now? Is
nowhere. But
not on this show. Might be.
But today looks to be the biggest day of the Bonnies season. I like the way the A-10 tournament kind of shakes out, because the A-10 structures their tournament. Of all the smaller conferences, I like when the conferences give their top teams a distinct edge, and the A-10 gives their top 4 teams a double bye into the quarterfinals. The Bonnies are 4th right now out of the 14 teams. So for those of you who are out there saying, well, Richmond really, really needs this game. They're literally, I think, the last team in on many bracketologies. So Richmond needs this game for an at-large. But St Bonaventure needs this game for the double bye, which they know this is just as important right now to win this game as it is for Richmond to win the game.
They need to win the A-10 tournament most likely to get in.
Right, and a lot of people just only look at it from the perspective of the at-larges. You have to remember that all these teams in the conference are fighting their asses off to try to get this automatic bid. This would give St Bonaventure a huge advantage. They're a half game up right now on Duquesne for that number 4 spot. Mark Schmidt is on record saying this is the biggest game of the season for them. They are usually deadly at home. It's a really tough place to get to, St Bonaventure. It's like in the middle of nowhere. So
Bonaventure, New York, is where it is.
That gives them a pretty good advantage just in terms of the teams that have to travel there. And then their home court advantage is really great. I mean, they get sellout crowds almost every night in the A-10, especially in these big games. So hosting Richmond, I have these teams. I do have Richmond better, but I have them only slightly better. We're getting points here at home with St Bonaventure. I'm on record saying I've come around on Richmond, but I think this is a little bit too much. Laying points on the road against a really good St Bonaventure team. I like the Bonnies.
And it's a good spot, too. I mean, they just got destroyed last Friday night at home against Davidson. They lost by nearly 30. And I say last Friday night, I don't mean last night. I mean last Friday night. So I know, sometimes you don't want to totally look at, the last game they lost, they must bounce back. I think there's something to be said when you have a week off to kind of, like you said, to stew and to see, and honestly, like you said, if Mark Schmidt is talking that way, this has been the sole focus of the St. Bonaventure Bonaventures.
It's basically what they are, right?
They're Bonnies, they're like the Houston Texans. That's been their sole focus for 7 straight days. They have been eating, breathing, sleeping Richmond Spiders. So another good spot here for the Bonnies. And something that, I think over the course of the year, I haven't been doing totals, you've been doing totals, but because of the volume of games we look at, especially on Saturdays, it's hard to always take the spots into account when we are looking at our power ratings. And I think today we've got some really good spots here that are, kind of enforcing what we're saying.
It's kind of becoming that, those are really the only
because
bets
it's just
left.
The lines are so tight.
Everything is so tight these days.
I mean, I think I've tried. I had a struggle earlier on in the season. I've tried to tighten mine up as quickly as much as I can, and that's led, as you can see, to less bets. And honestly, I'd much rather take 2 or 3 really good bets than take 5 or 6 that are they're fine,
Then you go 3 and 4.
Exactly. I'd rather just focus on the good ones, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's what we've won in the past few weeks. We're up almost 10 units. So I think we're kind of on the right track. And
we almost had a crisis the other day, but it was averted.
Yeah, we reverted the crisis. We almost had it was like a mini 2-day crisis. But a side note too, Joe. We're almost at conference tournament play.
I know. This is
You're almost there. And
next Saturday is the last full slate regular season Saturday of the year.
And as sad as that is, conference tournament play is where we thrive. So,
folks, this is very important that Chris brings this up. And I'm glad you brought it up before the end of the episode because people are still, they still want that last pick because there is one pick left, folks. You can't go anywhere yet. But I got to tell you this now. You have to follow the spread TBN on Twitter because you know why? And I'm going to put this up on the screen right now because you know why? This is a very important thing in conference when the conference tournaments come around. The thing about following the spread account is that when conference tournaments come around, there are a lot of instances where, because the matchups every day are not known, so like you have to wait for the previous day, obviously, because they're not known, the lines are not coming out until after the morning of the game, and that is where we find a lot of our edges. Yeah. However, those lines, as we see in the overnights, every day in the regular season, those lines move quick. So if you're not following this account, and I'm going to put it up right now so everyone can see.
And honestly, the way it works is, it's been great that gambling has been legalized, sports gambling has been legalized.
Boom.
In more states, but I just think that and I think you can get certain edges as sportsbooks start to learn. I think that there's going to be a sense of the lines getting tighter, everything getting more regulated. You really need to hammer home, and I think we've seen this in college basketball this year more than ever, that you want to get the lines as soon as you can.
Yeah.
And we've learned, I think especially too in the last month or so, that we want to get those lines at if it's a Thursday night and the games tip off on 7 p.m., we're watching the games, we're tracking our games, but we're also putting our bets for the next day.
Right.
We want to get it as soon as we can because there are guys in Vegas who can go to the window and get their tickets in 3 hours before us, and they're putting the big money on it.
And the thing about the conference tournaments is that that's really the only time of the year that we really get access to the openers.
Right, yeah, the true opener.
Right.
Because we don't get, we're not in Las Vegas, we don't get access to the true opener, but and that's why you really, if you want to win, you want to get the right picks, the good lines, it's important to take it the night before, and that's never been more important than now, and it's especially important on a Saturday.
All right, so now that we got that out of the way, our final bet of the day, we're going to the Missouri Valley once again. The game is at 8 p.m., and for our nightcap, we are going to take the Bradley Valparaiso under 140. These two teams have been slowing their paces down as the season has gone on. Valparaiso is finally fully healthy, as is Bradley. And I just feel like these two teams, they've always been defensive-oriented. They have better offenses this year. But as the season has gone on, especially for Valparaiso, they have leaned a lot more on their defense than they were at the beginning of the season. They just had a game against Southern Illinois that the final score was 55 to 38. So they are clearly slowing the game down. Bradley has always played slow. I just feel like this line is inflated, this total's inflated because these two teams played, or especially Valparaiso was playing pretty fast in the non-conference and even in the beginning of the conference season. So their pace, adjusted tempo, is higher than I think it will be going forward. So I think we have a little bit of an edge there. I will take the Valparaiso Bradley under 140. That's it for me. Unless, is Rhode Island available?
Rhode Island is. I'm seeing mixed reports. It looks like Rhode Island is. I have yet to see a place where it is at +3. We are looking at +3.
I'll take Rhode Island +3 if it's available.
Most places we're seeing 3 or 2.5. The last one I want to just take a look at, and this one really likely won't be available. Actually, it's possible. We're looking at Mountain West. We're going late night. If you're looking for that late night game, we're going with Fresno State. They are at Nevada. Excuse me.
How many times are you gonna do that?
Yeah, it's something I'll never learn. You
have to learn. Or else, you remember what happened to you last year?
I know, that was bad. I got put in a body bag. Fresno has been banged up all year. Whether it's Nate Grimes, New Williams, Nevin Hart, Jordan Campbell now. All these guys have been hurt at one point or another, and that's why I haven't really dropped my rating on Fresno because I still think they're a good team. They lost Braxton Huggins last year, who was a really good point guard for them. He was a senior point guard, but still doing that and getting kind of everybody back. I had them at a 5.5 last year, and so it doesn't make sense. I think the injuries have kind of played into why they're so low right now. And they're almost fully healthy. There's a couple bit players that are, in and out of the lineup. I think the big one I'm looking at is Jordan Campbell. He's questionable. I think he has an upper body injury. He's been kind of good with them. He's filled in as kind of a backup point guard. And Campbell is kind of he's a freshman, so he wasn't totally expected to make this make this jump for them and contribute as much, but I think he's been helpful for them, and I think it could give him. I would boost their rating a slight bit with Campbell. So right now the spread is Fresno is +7. They're at Nevada, whatever. I can't even remember. Nevada has kind of been a ball of fire this year. They've just been like making everything, and they're a very good shooting team. I mean, there's no doubt when you have Jalen Harris and Jazz Johnson, you're a really good shooting team. I just think that there is going to be a certain overcorrection. Maybe it's not that Nevada's shooting will get a little lower, but it's maybe perhaps that Fresno's three-point defense will regress a little bit. It's been pretty bad in conference play. And their two-point defense has been really good, which I think is more indicative of their defense and that it's not that bad, and that I think they can put up more of an effort than New Mexico did the other day. I also like the fact that
you would hope for.
Yeah, I like the fact that Nevada
we killed the closing line on that game also.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean a thing.
Generally,
we preach it all on the whole show. It doesn't mean shit. Nevada also does not force any turnovers, which has kind of been a bugaboo for Fresno this year. Part of that being the lack of healthy point guards. So I think that kind of matchup would help out. So right now the spread is at 7. If we are not getting any update on Campbell's injury status, I would like the spread, if you can get it at 8 maybe, but I don't know if it's coming there. If Campbell is deemed ready to play, maybe we'll go with 7.5. So just keep an eye on that one, and if you're looking at a late night bailout game, keep it in mind.
All right, folks. Well, that will do it for this episode of The Spread, the first of the season. Might be the last of the season, but hey, you got one in. We'll try to get you another one next
even
year.
if it is the last one of the season, we've got plenty of stuff going on. Follow us here on Twitter for the picks. Keep listening to the podcast. We're having one weekly. We will have a ton of conference tournament previews coming up. And then, of course, the show, March Madness, where, Joe, I know we've talked about recently where we focus so much on these mid-major conferences that, not that we're in the dark on what's happening. We know exactly what's happening, but in terms of, like, who to bet, we don't bet as many of the bigger conference games. I feel like we tend to do pretty well in March Madness. And
we do.
I think that's a testament just to...
It's very matchup oriented.
It is. So we're going to have good stuff for you all throughout April and beyond.
April?
Well, and then the tournament ends in April.
Oh, through April.
Yeah, through April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not throughout. Throughout March. Through April.
We're going to go in like a lion, and we're going to go out like a lion.
Right. We sleep in May.
That's the thing. If we sleep then.
Have a good one, everybody.